Hello there everyone, my name is Sebastian and it's time for another cup of SebbySpresso! Am I ever going to get used to saying that? Today I wanted to talk about something that helped me find my way into the furry fandom. So there were several things that pretty much led me to finding it in the first place. Certain video games, cartoons, a general obsession with dragons. I swear I don't have a problem. But today, I felt like talking about one of those things specifically. Okay, let me word that a little bit better. What I mean is that the fandom helped me overcome one of my biggest childhood fears. Now, as a kid, I had a lot of irrational fears. And as an adult, I still have a lot of irrational fears. Anyway, one thing that terrified me a lot as a kid was people in costumes, specifically mascot costumes, or as I called them as a kid, walking puppets, which in hindsight isn't completely inaccurate of a description. For those of you who don't know, this is an actual diagnosed phobia known as Masklophobia. As the name implies, it's fear of masks, as well as costumes that use masks, like mascot costumes. And I, unfortunately, suffered from this phobia for the majority of my life so far. Not only was it a terrifying experience, but it was also a really embarrassing experience. To give you an example, when I was a teenager, I went to Disney World for the first time in my life. And even though I had a lot of fun there, it was also a bit awkward. All these kids were running up to characters like Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck, getting hugs and autographs, and I was that one teen who was hiding behind his mother, praying not to be noticed. I felt so embarrassed, and this happened every single time we went to a theme park with costume characters walking around. I was constantly worried about who might be in those costumes, and these huge walking puppets in general were just terrifying to me at the time. I feel embarrassed even talking about it. Another example is when I had to go to my cousin's birthday party when I was 6, and it was at Chuck E. Cheese of all places. And if you remember how the animatronics looked in the 90s, and consider the fact that a guy dressed up as the titular mouse was walking around, yeah. Okay, so you may be wondering how exactly this phobia started, and fortunately, I do have an answer. When I was 2 years old, my mother took me to Sesame Street Live. It's about as far back as my memory goes, and it's still kind of fuzzy, but I do remember it. Not long after the curtain went up, I tried to run and hide under the seat. My inner germaphobe is cringing just thinking about going under a theater seat nowadays. So, I was absolutely terrified of practically every single character. One character in particular that terrified me was Prairie Dawn. Okay, hear me out on this. The Prairie Dawn I was used to seeing on TV was small. This Prairie Dawn was about 6 feet tall and was being portrayed by a guy. I'm not here to judge, but I don't think Prairie Dawn is supposed to have a deep male voice. My mom tried holding me to get a picture taken with Prairie Dude, but it backfired. I ended up picking up someone's bucket of popcorn and throwing it at Prairie Dude. And while Prairie Dude was distracted by my attempts to butter them up, I proceeded to jump out of my mother's arms and hide under another seat. And scream. A lot. At that point, my mom pretty much had no choice but to take me home. Once she was able to get me out from whatever seat I was hiding under. Needless to say, the whole thing did not work out at all. And from that point on, throughout my childhood, I did everything I could to avoid interacting with any sort of costume character everywhere I went. Beware Mickey Mouse. Avoid the Looney Tunes characters. McGoogles is gonna eat me. You get the idea. Alrighty, fast forward to when I was around 20 years old and discovered the furry fandom, fursuits, etc. I started watching videos of various furry YouTubers over the years, and I don't know if I can explain it. I mean, it did take a few years for me to get over my childhood feelings, but there was just something I felt from fursuiters that I didn't feel from other costume characters. For once, people in costumes were actually making me feel like staying in my seat and watching them rather than hiding under it. Combining this with other things that piqued my interest about anthropomorphic animal characters, and something just clicked with me. And eventually, I actually got around to wanting a fursuit for myself. So after all those years, my Masklophobia had finally pretty much been cured. And then Five Nights at Freddy's came out and undid a lot of that progress. But thankfully, that fear phase didn't last nearly as long. Honestly, it still surprises me to this day that I've actually gone from being scared out of my mind by costume characters to actually having a fursuit of my own. It's all very surreal. Not only has it helped me overcome one of my biggest fears from when I was a kid, but it's also allowed me to open up more in general. So if you're watching this video and you're a fursuiter, I just want to say thank you for doing your best to put smiles on everyone's faces. And if you're that guy who's in that Prairie Dawn costume all those years ago, I apologize for throwing all that popcorn on you. Anyway, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about today. I want to thank you so much for joining me. I really hope you liked this video, and I hope to see you back here soon for another serving of SebbySpresso. See you next time!